Yes, 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 yes. I don't know why my hair's doing that today, but it decided to. So, hey, g'day. I hope you're doing well. Gosh, look at me. Gee, bloody trying to get yourself together, Matt. I wanted to share with you this afternoon. Gosh, let's have some espresso. Why is it that when people drink, they always make this sound after, right? I want to punch people in the face when they do that around me. Hate it. So I just thought I'd put you through it. Okay, today I want to share with you a little bit about my new book. I'm so excited. It's been about 2 years in process, honestly. I started this book back then. And so here's what I'm going to do in today's show. I want to show you the list of front covers that the publisher had me choose from. Right, so there you go. You get a bit of an inside scoop. You'll also see an alternate subtitle that we were playing with, but we didn't end up choosing. And then I'll show you the book cover that we actually went with. And then I will show with you a little bit of the inside cover, what it looks like, tell you how to find it, online and things like that. And I'm really excited about this. It's not out yet, but it should be out in May. What is it, April? Good. And then maybe we'll do some Q&A if you're feeling up for it. All right? So... By the way, thank you to all of you who are praying for my wife. She's in hospital again. I know I just went from like super funny to super serious, but it does mean the world to me. You guys would pray for us, so thank you. I won't get into it here. You can probably find it on her social media, Instagram and stuff, but yeah, she's not doing great. She's at Cleveland Clinic. But I will tell you this, if you go to Cleveland Clinic, man, it ruins your experience of every other hospital, which now looks like a DMV to me. Like every other hospital, it's like a crappy Walmart compared to Cleveland Clinic. It's gorgeous, man. But anyway. All right, so the book is called How to Be Happy. St. Thomas's Secret to a Good Life. So in this book, we take a look at what Aquinas says happiness is, to what degree we can have it in this life, what we try to turn to make us happy, and why it doesn't ultimately work. And again, this is based on the advice of Thomas Aquinas, not on a knucklehead like me. In fact, I've got to share with you what I said to my wife today because she thought it was super funny. I shared this on social media. So I usually write like a dedication, right? At the start of a book, you write a dedication. Here's the dedication. It says, "To my very good wife, Cameron, who upon learning... during one of my rather dramatic, melancholic, moody spells, that I had written a book entitled How to Be Happy, said, 'Wow, you should read that.'" So that's the dedication to my darling wife. She literally the other day, we were actually in the emergency room and she was going in. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we have a front cover to my book. And she's like, "You wrote a book?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not like, it's kind of on the side thing. But I am actually... I know people say this about like musicians when they put out a new album, that usually the line they say is like, "This is my most intimate or my most like personal album yet." But that actually is true of this book. I share a lot in these stories. There's a lot of stuff in here that I think you'll really like. Anyway, enough of this. Let me show you what the different front covers we were looking at are, and then what I chose to get. All right, so the way a publisher works, right, is they basically design the front cover, come up with, everything else. But so, and they send it to you, and if you're lucky, they'll give you a choice. So it's called How to Be Happy. We changed that subtitle. What is it? Thomas Aquinas on the Good Life or something? But so here's the different options, right? Is option 1, what do you think? Option 2, notice the difference, see the how. That O is like a play off of that sun that's usually seen on Aquinas in his different images. There's that one. By the way, Scott Hahn wrote the foreword, pumped. Of course, it's his publisher, so he had a vested interest in it. There you go, so there's that one. Okay, what do you think? What do you think so far? What do you like? What do you like? What do you don't like? Is this one? What do you think? What do you think? And then finally that one. All right. So let me know in the comments what you thought was the best one. I would love to hear from you. But what I chose was this one. How to Be Happy, St. Thomas's Secret to a Good Life. So this is what we're going with. I'm super pumped about it. I love it. It's classic and just beautiful. I like it, so I'm really cool with it. I didn't like the other ones. I thought they were too modern, so this is the one we've decided to go with. Again, it'll be out next month, and I guess I'm going to be recording an audiobook at some point before the release of this. So when we finally release this book next month, it'll also be available on Audible, read by yours truly. Now, let me show you what the inside looks like, so you can kind of get a feel as to... So it's published with Emmaus Road. God bless him. I don't know if all of this is correct. This is kind of like the mock-up, you know? All right, so here's the basic overview. Section 1, our true end, God, the universe, and everything. Meet St. Thomas Aquinas. I got a little introduction to who he is there. Aquinas on God and happiness. Section 2 is all about what will not make us happy. And so we ask the questions, can sin make me happy? Can bodily pleasures make me happy? Can interior pleasure make me happy? And we'll jump down and take a look at some of those in a sec, I think. Section 3, what will make us happy? Prudent moral muscles, temperate, just courage, faith, hope, and love. And then Section 4, grounding our happiness, controlling our passions, what to do when life hurts, how scruples steal happiness. So this is really steeped in the wisdom of Thomas Aquinas. This isn't a book where Matt Fradd tells you what will make you happy, because, or how to get it, because I'm not an expert, but Aquinas is, and I look forward to reading this book again, actually. I'm actually looking forward to reading the audiobook, because I'll get to read it again and actually learn from Thomas Aquinas. Let's scroll down here. I'm just trying to... Perfect and imperfect happiness. We could talk about that. It's steeped in the writings of Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle. Let's see, what else we got? Can bodily... Okay, so why don't I just read a little bit, just so you kind of get an idea. Whoa, I'm blind, so forgive me. Can money make us happy? Aquinas may confidently say that wealth can't make us happy, but I don't think most of us are as confident as him. If you came up to me and said, here's $100,000, that would make me really happy. Or at least it would make me really excited and happy to be alive. But Aquinas gives us an argument to show why money can't give us true happiness. First, he makes a distinction between two kinds of wealth. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I won't read through the whole thing. Can stuff make us happy? Many of you are familiar with my testimony. I've shared about that time that girl and I've decided not to use her real name anymore, but I talk about this in the beginning of the book. So I'll just read a couple of paragraphs and then we'll start taking some questions if you want to do that. I won't read through the whole book. This is not a live recording of the book. When I was about 12 years old, I had a good friend of the same age who I'll call Jane. Like me, Jane enjoyed pondering deep questions. One day she wanted to go rollerblading, and after a while we pulled over to the side of the road and she began telling me about a bunch of negative things going on in her life. At one point she said something for which I had no response. Matt, I don't know why I should continue to go on living. As a 12-year-old who was still figuring out how to rollerblade without looking like a dork and not succeeding, I just thought to myself, what can I do what do I have to say to this girl? It's funny, this is a true story, actually. I remember sitting there and having no idea what to say to her. And I think after the fact, I was like I'm 12. All I know how to do is, make that sound with my armpit. And I'm not terribly sure if that's going to be very convincing. At one point, she said something for which I had a response. Yeah, what do I have to say to this girl? And she's like, give me one reason to go on living. I was concerned with Jane asked this, but I didn't think she was on the verge of killing herself. It felt more like Jane was stuck on a question a lot of other people don't think about. What's the point of this life? I didn't have a religious answer for Jane because at this stage of my life, I wasn't sure that God existed. I wouldn't have said I was an atheist back then, but I was an agnostic, probably. God, I was beginning to think, was something we liked to believe because we didn't like the idea of death, of never seeing our loved ones again, of life having no ultimate purpose. And here was the problem. If life had no ultimate purpose, and Jane was asking me for a purpose to go on living, then what could I say? But Jane, you're awesome. Anyway, so that's what I mean. There's a lot of kind of personal stories woven throughout this book. So I hope that you will get it when it comes out. I really am. This is one of the books I'm most excited about releasing for a long time. So How to Be Happy, St. Thomas' Secret to a Good Life. I'll be sure to announce it when it is out. How does that sound? I hope it sounds good. All right. So if we want to do some questions, we could do that. And then I will, I'll head out. I want to read this ASAP. Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Base Byzantine. Looks really good. Thank you kindly. It's very nice of you. Just got here. What's the title? Boom. It's right there. How to Be Happy, St. Thomas's Secret to a Good Life. Funny story. Initially, it was going to be called The Angelic Doctor is In, Finding Happiness with Thomas Aquinas, but I thought that was just a little too cute, and people wouldn't necessarily know what we were talking about. Looks great. What was the most surprising thing you learned while writing it? That's a really good question. I think one of the things I got to dwell on more and more, I would say there were two things that really struck me. And the first is that we actually can't find fulfillment in this life. And we often very much try to. We are sojourners. We are pilgrims. We have been made for God, right? Aristotle talks about this, right? That happiness is what satisfies our nature. So like whenever you're trying to plan something or do something, it is with the objective of being happy. You know, if I say, well, why are you going on vacation next year? You're like, well, I go with the family and it should be fun. Well, why do you want to have fun? Well, it's just to relax. Why do you want to relax? Like eventually it's like, because I think it'll make me happy. Like that's the reason, you know? It's the reason we do anything. Nobody says, well, everybody says, well, some people say, let's be specific here, nuanced, I want to be rich so I can be happy. But nobody would say, I want to be happy so I can be rich. Right? Happiness is not the means to an end. Happiness is the end, right? And so Aquinas says, like, ultimately God and God alone is our fulfillment. And so we're not going to be fully satisfied in this life. And that's a very difficult thing to come to grips with. I had this the other day. I mean, my wife's in hospital right now. She's been super sick for a long time. I'm trying to hold down the house. I've got 4 kids. I'm running this thing. It's been bloody difficult, like really difficult. And, you know, in Holy Mass the other day, I was reading, I think it's 2 Peter, 1st or 2 Peter, where it says, like, don't be surprised that this fiery ordeal has come upon you, as if something strange is happening to you. And it struck me, you know, like we are living at war. We're at war. And our only place of refuge and sustenance is the Lord Jesus Christ. But I think too often we look for Eden, as it were. We look for satisfaction in this life. But we're at war. Like our life is not an episode of Seinfeld. It's more like the movie Saving Private Ryan. And I think recognizing that is one kind of step towards actually finding some degree of happiness in this life. That would be one thing that kind of really struck me. I think another thing that struck me, it's just the idea that like Aquinas actually gives logical arguments for why certain things can't make us happy. So he actually goes through why money can't make you happy, why power can't make you happy. And so he begins with this idea, right? That happiness is the end to which we seek in order to be fulfilled. And so his argument is like, so money can't make you happy because no one wants money because of what money can give. Sorry, let me say that again. No one wants money for its own sake. We want money for what it can give us. So therefore, of course, it can't make us happy because we don't even want money. We want what money can give us. Okay, so now let's look at those things. So, you know, like sometimes people say like money can't make you happy, but you're like, oh yeah, I'd prove you wrong. But when Aquinas speaks, you're like, wow, that's compelling, you know. I also look at what Aquinas has to say about the 7 deadly sins and how these things can't make us happy. So anyway, I'm super happy with the book. Thomist in a Teapot, great name by the way, says, so this is how Matt Fradd scored a Scott Hahn interview last month. That's funny, but I will say there's like, Scott really makes himself available to people here in Steubenville. He's such a good person, and his wife is such a good person. I mean, it's not at all one of these like, I'm Scott Hahn and you can just stay away. Like he's like, how can we help? You know, camera being in hospital and stuff like this. So he's a super good dude. This is funny. Chuck says, well, money does help with happiness a little bit. So, you know, that reminds me of some comedian who said, money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a jet ski. And people on jet skis don't seem sad. I forget who it was who said that, but I thought that was funny. Will there be an e-book version, says Maria Holt? Yes, there will be. And as I say, there will be an audiobook version as well. I'll be recording it on Audible. So, you know, for what that's worth. I've never actually done that before. Like, I've recorded that podcast I have. My sister and I write those little fiction stories. And I recorded the last story, but you got to stop it so many times and edit. It's actually a lot more cumbersome than you think. But I suppose that someone at the St. Paul Center is going to help me do it. So I'll probably just record it and they'll be in charge of editing. But the hope is that it will come out at the same time as the book. Here now, All I know, do. This person says, I have a friend who is steeped in depression, and she has little motivation to even search for help. Bless her. She isn't religious at all and loosely believes in God. Could this book help her at all? 100% I think it can. And again, not because I'm brilliant, but because Aquinas is. Like, sometimes people think of Aquinas as somebody who's just, like, totally out of touch with the modern man. Like, he's a scholar, he's an intellectual, he's a mystic. And we think, what does he have to say to us? Well, one of the things Aquinas addresses in the Summa, and which I delve into at great depth in this book, is how do we recover from sadness? Now, I understand that there can be, like, sort of psychological, neurological imbalances that might require something in addition to even therapy, right? It could be medication or something like that. But Aquinas is very grounded. He gives 5 remedies for happiness, and I won't go through all of them here. I've done podcasts in the past, and I go into it in great detail in this book. But one of the things he says is sleep and baths, which is a super cool thing to say to somebody. Like, hey, if you're not doing well, if you're sad, you should have a hot bath and try to have a good night's sleep, and then let's meet in the morning for coffee. Now, in saying that, I don't mean that to come off as patronizing. Like, somebody may have been through some terribly awful event, and saying have a bath and a good night's sleep might come off as patronizing. But it's not meant to. It's just meant to say, like, we are our bodies, and how our bodies are affect us, because they are us, you know? And so if we're exhausted, we're not going to be well. Another thing he says is the sympathy of friends, right? It's so important to have the sympathy of friends. And he says, one of the reasons he says that is when you're confiding in a friend about how you're sad, you see their affection for you. You see their sympathy for you, and it's as if you get to share that weight that you're carrying with somebody else. He's just so beautiful. So I would absolutely say check this out. I mean, one of the things you could say is, like, look, we're talking about here like a philosopher who draws on the wisdom of Aristotle. There's a lot of Aristotle in this book as well. So you could pitch it like that if they're, you know, a little nervous about reading a full-on Catholic book, you know. Joanne Oakley says, I love when the author reads their own books on Audible. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if you know this or not, but I wrote a book called The Porn Myth for Ignatius Press several years ago. And I suggested, when an audiobook publisher reached out to me and said they want to turn it into an audiobook, I suggested that I read it. And they said, well, send us a sample. And I did. And they went, nah. No worries. So now you got some English bloke reading to you. But no, I do agree. Joe says, are you going to be in Steubenville youth conferences? So a couple of years ago, I actually quit doing that. I was very much enjoying it. I love speaking to young people. I actually love young people a great deal. Like, I really do. Like, I know I'm kind of old and curmudgeony. Maybe you don't think that, but I am. But I just love teenagers. I just love them. I just love their authenticity. I just love them in their struggles. My favorite people to meet at, like, these youth conferences are, like, people who are, like, weird. Because I feel like I'm weird. So when I meet, like, kids who are, like, either super into heavy metal or Zelda, like, I'm just like, my people, let's talk. I love you. I love you, you know, and so I just love it. But anyway, a couple of years ago, I was praying. I thought, you know, I think it's time to step down, speaking at these youth conferences. Surely they can find a younger Caucasian male to address them. They don't need me doing it. So anyway, there you are. Chuck says, Matt, if I visit Steubenville, can I take you out to lunch? Would like to talk about justification. Sure, I'm not sure how helpful I would be in that area. I would have some books I could recommend that would be far more helpful than me. I would suggest, like, I go to daily mass at St. Peter's, so if you're here at St. Peter's, tap me on the shoulder, we can go get a coffee or something like that. That might work. Can't say for sure, right, because I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'm open to it for sure. The topic makes me want to take the time to read Aristotle to get a better idea, of where Aquinas is coming from. I would absolutely do that. Read his Nicomachean Ethics. Just dive into the first chapter. If you're skeptical, that you'll find it interesting, and I think you'll realize it's absolutely incredible. And then Aquinas has a commentary on the Nicomachean Ethics. It's about that big, but it's fantastic. All right, what else we got here? Favorite Zelda game? I'm not really a gamer, I'll be honest. I was kind of into games when I was a teenager, but then they got too sophisticated for me, and I ceased being able to understand and thus enjoy them. So like Call of the Wild, I just find really difficult. I want to like it. I just lose interest. It is funny as you get older, the things you used to find kind of comfort in are difficult to find comfort in anymore. Like, I could lose myself in a video game for hours and be close to happiness. How about that? But now I just can't really enjoy it a great deal. Like, I find reading sitting, talking about things, really, really cool. So, but I want to get back into some games. So we'll see what happens. Veritas says, Matt, we are praying for your wife. It's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Anthony says, can't wait for this. Thank you. Andrew says, are you reading the audiobook? Yes, I'm reading the audiobook for this book. Hooray for Zelda. Look at that. I got a super chat because someone's super into Zelda. Philip says, hey Matt, can you talk about how to find the right devotions for you? I have a ton I'm interested in doing, but hard to find the time to devote to them. That's a really good question. Here's what I would say. And I forget who I'm drawing this from. It may have been Escriva. I forget, so forgive me for not attributing this quote, but somebody said, there are many devotions within the church's treasury. Choose only a few and be faithful to them. There is so much wisdom in that. So I would say, don't look too hard. It's, maybe choose some of those devotions that are most popular and most sort of promoted by the church. You might just pick up the Holy Rosary and pray that daily. The end. Done. Pray the Rosary every day. Read your Bible for 10, 20, 30 minutes. Done. That's it. Don't overcomplicate things. We can very often mistake novelty for a sense of devotion. All right, so you've been praying the Rosary, it's old hat at this point, and then someone tells you about St. Michael Chaplet or the Jesus Prayer, and it's novel, so you're enthusiastic about it, and it's easy to mistake that natural feeling or response to something novel as devotion because you're excited and you like being excited. But as I'm kind of getting older, I'm thinking it's probably really, really wise just to keep your spiritual life very, very simple, not to overcomplicate things. Get back to basics. If you have more questions, I'd be happy to chat about this because I'm really passionate about that. But Christianity Rules says, any book recommendations? I'm currently, with my son, I'm reading Father Elijah by Michael O'Brien. You might want to check that out. Johnny Pop-Tart says, spoiler alert for How to Be Happy. It's a picture of Jesus and the rest of the book is blank. That would be really funny. Yeah. So the book's not available yet. It'll be out next month, and I'll make an announcement. So for those of you who are asking where can you get it from, just hold on for a sec, and it'll be here next month. Joe says, any quick advice? People who recently lost a parent. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Joe. I just lost my mum of COVID. Rachel. Oh, may the Lord bless her and welcome her into heaven. Give Joe and his family the grace to do what they got to do and be courageous during this time. Man. Yeah, what's the difference between having joy and being happy? Yeah, a lot of this does come down to definitions, doesn't it? I mean, Aquinas talks about sort of earthly happiness. He talks about sort of beatitude, happiness in the sense of beatitude, of us experiencing God in heaven. So it depends. I mean, I think often joy is thought to be more elevated than happiness, but it need not. It's just how we define our terms. I think in common parlance, when people talk about happiness and joy, happiness might refer to a sort of a surface level pleasure. I'm not saying Thomas Aquinas thought that to be the case. I'm just saying as we speak about happiness today, sometimes we do speak about happiness being sort of surface level and then joy being a deep down. And I got to say, the more I've been pressing into prayer these last few weeks, I've been finding a deep joy in Jesus Christ. I've been pretty, and I know this isn't about me, Joe, you've just shared this terrible thing with me, and I'm very sorry for the loss of your mum, so sorry for making this about me again, but I actually have been really struggling a great deal these last couple of months. I don't think I've experienced a sort of level of stress or I think even anxiety and depression, just sort of violent fits of it sometimes, it's been really bloody difficult. And I tell you, it's just the temptation is just to throw the cross off, but it's not a good idea. And lately just sort of just realizing Christ is my refuge, and just sort of praying through that image and praying with some people who I love. And And so just to get to that happiness joy distinction, I feel there's this solidity in the depths of my soul, especially in regards to like we're supposed to be here in Steubenville. Like I really feel convicted about that in a deep place. But everything beyond that deep place is pretty topsy-turvy, you know? So that might help, I don't know. But yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really great point. Kathahola, I can never say your name. The biggest thing that's helped me recently is focusing on the fact that all I have is the present moment. Yeah, amen. I mean, it's funny how sometimes this sort of wisdom seeps into the world and the world picks up a bit of it and then it kind of immunizes us from it. Does that make sense? Like, for example, mindfulness, if you describe that as being conscious of what you're doing, where you are, you know, aware of your surroundings, not just rushing through life, it's obviously a good thing. But it's like when the world picks it up, all of a sudden we become very suspect of it. Do you know what I mean? And I think similarly here, when someone's like, all I have is a present moment, someone might be tempted to say, oh yeah, that's just kind of new age or something. It's like, no, Jesus literally said, don't worry about tomorrow. You know, the evils that you've got here, it's enough for today, you know, so that's beautiful, mate. Bless you, Tim. I'm just kind of going through everybody's comments here. All right. The Catholic Teen says, I think when it comes to happiness, C.S. Lewis hit it on the head when he said our desires are too weak, not too strong. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I've memorized that quote. So here's what you're referring to. It was a sermon C.S. Lewis gave, Weight of Glory, I think. He says, when we consider the unblushing promises of reward of Christ in the Gospels, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink, sex, and ambition, while infinite joy is being offered to us. We're like an ignorant peasant who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he doesn't know what is meant by the offer to vacation at sea. We are far too easily pleased. Oh gosh, yeah, that line always gets me, Derek. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. My gosh, I love that guy so much. Derek and Gandalf. I was talking about Gandalf. I did mean Derek as well. All right, my dear friends. So anyway, that's the book, How to Be Happy. It'll be out next month. Even if you just get it because Scott Hahn wrote the foreword and you can think of all of my ramblings afterwards as a sort of afterword to Scott's genius. How about that? But thank you so much.